I wrote a 1,500 word essay using Notion in one day. Let me show you how. Today I'm going to share with you how I wrote my essay in one day. And let me tell you, I hate essays. What's that? You hate essays as well? Well, this video is for you. First of all, I just want to say there are few things worse for me than writing an essay. I am bad at essays. I was never particularly good. My English, my grammar skills, critical thinking and putting things together is not the best. So in medical school, when we have to write an essay, I don't really enjoy that. And so for the first year of medical school, when we had our first essay, I spent an hour each day for a couple of weeks, waking up early, doing the research, looking at how to structure my essay, reminding myself what I should do. And that just took me way too long. Instead of finishing the essay within a short span of time, it took me days. And what happened is that even though I put in a lot of effort, a lot of time, it did not translate to really good results. I didn't get an 80, I didn't get a 90. And so I thought to myself, when we had another essay during second year, I'm like, I'm not gonna waste hours of my life writing an essay just to get a bad grade if all I need is really a 60 to pass and move on to next year. Not that I'm aiming for low marks, but I just didn't want to stress out and lose so much of my precious time on the essay where I could be studying for an exam and doing other things. And at the time of preparing for this essay, I got into the mentality of really wanting to challenge myself, to take myself into new levels. So I thought, you know what if I just gave myself a limit of one day? What if I invoked Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time allotted? And so if I had given myself a couple of weeks to finish the exam, it would have taken me that time. But I decided to shorten that down, create a massive deadline of one day. So I picked a Saturday, started early, woke up early, began my researching, and I finished the essay by the end of the day. And I allowed for extra time in the future to do a spelling check, grammar check, rewrite a couple of sentences. But overall, I did complete my essay in one day, which allowed me then to focus on my final exam that was coming up, which was a very heavy exam. While most of my classmates were thinking about writing the essay after the exam or leading up to it, I just wrote it 3 weeks before and I could fully focus on the exam that was coming up. So let me show you how I structured my Notion page to allow me to collect all the resources I needed, to categorize them, and then begin my essay writing. From Notion, I then went to Google Docs and I finished my essay there. So let's go on to Notion. So as you can see right here, I have the page. So final sim essay. On the top, I wrote down the guide because I often find myself referencing the rubric. So if I open here, there's a screenshot. Write an essay of about 1,200 words, max 1,500 words between one of these questions. I picked the top one that basically says, a lot of people are experiencing many side effects of COVID. What population do you think has been impacted and why? And then here's the rubric. So I knew exactly what to follow along. That way, if I ever get lost, I can go back to this map and guide my research and writing. So this is the most important part for me, and I find for a lot of essays, is really having a structured way of organizing your resources. And this is why I love Notion. You could do this in Excel, you could do this in any other type of platform, but I find Notion makes it so much easier. And I actually have not changed the table. I could have made this look a little bit nicer, a little bit prettier for you to see and look at how I listed my resources and wrote out the outline, but I decided to give you the raw version of exactly how I last left it. So I began by researching. I knew that I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do something very typical. So I like to learn more about integrative medicine, alternative vitamin supplementation. And so I decided, okay, well, let's risk looking at some vitamin D effects, sun exposure, other things like that. So I began looking at vitamin D, looking for different resources because I wanted to back everything up by science, a lot of evidence-based, because that way, at least if I kind of veer off the Western medicine, the more typical evidence-based medicine, I could support it with evidence still. So this is exactly how I did it. I labeled it. So one of the paragraphs that I created was talking about metabolic health. The other one was vitamin D. And then there was a third one. Don't remember what the third one was, but I went on the internet, searched on PubMed. Here you can see the first column is the name, the title, or the source. So here's from a podcast, Fat Emperor, PubMed article 1. I would write, okay, what does this relate relate to vitamin D, metabolic health, or the financial impact. That's the third paragraph. The URL is right here, so I knew exactly if I click that link, it can take me there. It's very easy and organized. And then key phrase is basically, why did I pick this? What's the quick summary? If I, instead of opening up the article, reading it again, reading the summary, what is the main reason why I picked this article? That way I could just look through here and be like, oh, do I need to see that? Yep, yeah, I do. I'm gonna go click and read that for my paragraph. Now, I got a little bit tired of reading this resource page and scrolling up and down, up and down. I would type here, right? The focus of this paper would be to highlight including patients, then scroll up, click an article, scroll back down and write it again. And one of the downsides of Notion is that it doesn't have spell check. Not that I know of, it doesn't correct your grammar. So what I did is I decided, okay, I'm gonna at least write down my outline for the paper here, so I have an idea of where to go. Now that I have my outline, I'm gonna transition to Google Docs, which has extensions. You can add extensions to Chrome, such as Grammarly. Wordtune has better spelling check functions, and I finished the rest of my essay there. Now, before we move on to Google Docs, I just want to emphasize the nice thing about Notion is really capturing the references. As you can see here, I even wrote down some of the rubric points that I needed to keep in mind as I was writing, at least structuring my outline. I had the introduction, body 1, 3 points, body 2, 2 to 3 points, body 3, 2 to 3 points. Then I just copy and pasted this into the Word document. So now let's take a look at the Word document. All right, so this is my final exam and this is how it looks like. What I initially started to do is, instead of writing out the entire citation or the reference for somebody, I would just write down a number 1, and then I could look at my Notion page here and see tag number 1, 2, 3, and so on. And I'd be, okay, that's referring to this paper, because it's a lot faster than having to figure out exactly the proper format. And I might not even keep that reference later on if I find better information. But going back to the Google document, one of the nice things that I mentioned already about this is that if you have Grammarly, it's going to be correcting your grammar, and I need that. It's very helpful. And there's another extension called Wordtune. It's this purple icon here. If I select any sentence, so while many pharmaceutical companies, I'll select that, have been racing to design an effective vaccine for the virus, some doctors and researchers decided to evaluate the role of vitamin D in minimizing the severity. Okay, let's say I don't like the way that's structured. I don't like the way it's worded. It sounds a little weird or too professional, and I want to change that. If I click, I could do Command D or just click Wordtune. It's going to rewrite it in a different manner. So maybe you're trying to write it in a way that's similar to the article, but it's a little too similar. You want it to be a little bit different, or maybe the way you write it sounds a little too slang. You want to be more professional. Well, Wordtune has your back. This video is not sponsored by Notion or Wordtune or Grammarly, but I find it extremely beneficial. So here it restructured it, and it says many pharmaceutical companies are racing to create an effective COVID-19 vaccine, but some doctors and researchers have decided to evaluate the effects of vitamin D on COVID-19. Or you can go with this one, and there's several different ways that it is restructuring it. Now you can click some of the icons up here. You can make it a more casual tone. You can do a formal tone. You can shorten it or expand it. These can be beneficial. I did not pay for the premium version, but it could be beneficial. But this is how I eventually wrote my essay. And then at the very end, I put my references together, and that was not too bad. It was easy to do because Notion had everything that I used, because I kept track of it. And I've written too many essays where it's been messy. I forget where I place things. I have different files for different resources, and you don't want to do that. You just want to keep everything nice and organized. So instead of taking me 3 weeks to write my final exam essay, it literally took me 1 day. I put in a lot of effort up front. I squeezed that into just 1 day, but in the end, it saved me a lot of time in the long run. If you're watching this, you're most likely a student, and time is an extremely valuable resource for you. And one of the biggest struggles I see students go through is procrastination, which leads to stress, which leads to anxiety and burnout. I know the feeling because I experienced this during my first year of medical school. That's why over the past couple of weeks, I've been working with a handful of students working on these very things that I just mentioned. I designed an 8-week-long program that helps you focus on building strategies and systems that you can implement to get 10 hours back during your week, so you can focus on doing other things that also matter, such as your hobbies, such as spending time with friends and family. And here are some of the things that my current students had to say. So Hazel said, I used to spend 27 hours on social media with a daily average of 3 hours and 53 minutes. This following week, I cut it down to 19 hours, which gave me 8 hours back in my week. But I am shocked at how this addiction has cost me so much time. My goal for the next week is to cut it back even more. Anyone else surprised with their social media usage? And Precious said, when she used the Unstoppable Performance Matrix from week 4, she concluded that she spent 7 hours on social media each week and discovered was actually much more. So instead of spending 7 hours on social media, she decided to apply a position to edit articles. And so she became a lot more productive and was able to find time in her week to do the things that she wanted to do. Right now, the program is in its beta testing phase. And so I'm only allowing a handful of students, a limited amount of students, to join the program at a discounted price. If you want to learn more about it, you can send me a DM on Instagram or click the link below and book a free strategy call to see if the program would be a good fit for you.